So for the people that you're talking to that are 35-ish at that age, find the state that you see yourself living in for the rest of your life. What is that state? Find your community. Find a company that matches your values and principles and move there and run with them. Nothing like it. Identify the industry. Identify what industry or company will be able to use your skill sets in the best of possibilities. Go there. In the next 4 years, capitalize off the next 4 years. Do not waste your time.
How can I help? How can I be useful in ending needless suffering? Do not be afraid of work that has no end.
We have to organize a social movement.
We have an opportunity to lead by example versus just talking, hot air. I think the more people in this fight, the more we grow. Eventually it could change. The people are the ones that can make the change.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Change Agents, an IRONCLAD original presented by Firecracker Farm. Today, we're going to be sitting down with Patrick Bet-David and talking about how he feels his view on the state of the world just before the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump. For those of you unfamiliar with PBD, he is a very successful entrepreneur. He's an author and the host of the PBD Podcast, and he grew up during the Iranian Revolution and fled the country with his family to escape political unrest. Spent time in refugee camps in Germany before immigrating to the United States, served in the United States Army, part of the 101st Airborne Division, is the founder of the YouTube channel and media brand Valuetainment. Let's dive in. These are straight in your wheelhouse. I mean, question one, how are you feeling about the future of our country? What are your thoughts on the past 4 years and the 4 years we're getting ready to go into?
On November 4th, skeptical. November 6th, optimistic, if that's what you're asking. Because to me, I'm worried about, and let me explain to you why. Peter Thiel is doing a podcast with Barry Weiss. And Barry Weiss, you know, former New York Times, she's done a lot of different work, good stuff that she does, good interviews. And I told her this was great. Peter Thiel says when Musk said, this is a very important election. You know how everybody says that all the time. And Peter's like, look, everybody that says that, give me a break. We say that every 4 years. And then he says, as it got closer, I realized this is a very, very important election. Why? Here's how he broke it down. If Kamala would have won, Obama would have came out the next day saying one thing, and it would have been such a painful thing for him to say. He would have said the 2016 election was a fluke. Trump got lucky, period. America didn't want a Trump. But the fact that he lost, when I say he, Kamala didn't lose, Obama really lost. When he lost, Trump gets to come in and says, this is what America wants. Aside from 2020, when you guys manipulated everybody and fooled everybody with this stuff that holding, stories from going out, New York Post, Twitter, X, all this other stuff, and even, Mark Zuckerberg right now coming and giving money to Trump. And, hey, they asked us to do this, and I regret giving $400 million, dear Honorable Chairman Jim Jordan. It's a very different thing because hero-making machine. Guys were asking, hey, who is Andy? I'm like, who is Andy? Why don't you go Google Andy Stumpf, then go Control-F, search for views, go to that 11 million view clip of him training all the different instructors. This is a Navy SEAL team instructor. Like, this is a stud of a guy, right? To me, you're a hero. I think the last 8 years, America's been confused with what a hero is. We don't know what a hero is. Is the hero somebody who is choosing to have kids and raise their kids? Is that the hero? Is the hero somebody that wants to have kids, raise them, and it's hard? Who wants to be a parent? Who wants to have the responsibility, sleepless nights? Who really wants to go through that? It's a more selfish thing to say, I don't want to have kids. I want to just live my life. I want to live for me. And I understand that, everybody to each their own. But we got to get back to who is the hero. What is the hero? Bill Burr made a joke yesterday on Jimmy Kimmel talking about the fact that you guys are saying, hey, mismanagement with the fires on these internet trolls. He says, yeah, why don't you go fly a helicopter into the fire? No, I don't want to do with 100-mile-an-hour winds. Guess what? That's what the guy signed up for. It's not like, well, Navy SEAL, why don't you go into Benghazi, and why don't you go into Tikrit? Why don't you go into all these other places? No, you're right. We don't want to go. They want to go. That's why we respect them. when you sign up to be a firefighter is to go to those places. That's your job. If you don't want to have that kind of risk, don't take the job. Go be something else. But those who do. So I think the optimism comes from us going back to recognizing the right heroes. And we have confused the shit out of our kids the last 10, 15 years.
I tell you what, I was having a conversation yesterday with a Kiwi who is desperately trying to find his way to emigrate into the U.S. And, that's a whole conversation about, the policy and the procedures to get into that. But he was talking about a very worldly traveled individual. And he was talking about how he doesn't think, and he wasn't saying it negatively, but he doesn't think that the vast majority of Americans understand that the United States is a lighthouse to the rest of the world. He doesn't think that most Americans understand what we have. And I was talking with him, and one of the things that I am concerned with, and I'm glad to see the pendulum switching back in the other direction, is that I'm worried that, I don't know if it's officially being taught, but the narrative that I have heard is, well, we were never the lighthouse to begin with. We were never a pure country. We were built on oppression and, colonizing and all of these things. It's this attempt to shift the narrative away from, and the cascading effects of that, decreased number of people who want to serve in this country, who want to wear the American flag on their uniform. When I look at the color map, the blue and the red, I agree with you. It was interesting too, because the vast majority of people, I think, got tired of arguing about who they were going to vote for. And they very quietly went to the voting booth and they checked that box. And I'm hoping that pendulum is coming in the other direction, because I think we need that change.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the walking on eggshells. I think people were afraid to talk about who they want to vote for, okay? Khloe Kardashian, big name, actual celebrity, 300+ million followers, says something about the mayor, like, what a joke to the mayor. And then, hey, how come you didn't say Trump is a joke? How come you saying this is a joke? How come you didn't say, look, how many more people in Zach Levi, Shazam, he played Kurt Warner in the movie Underdog, I believe. This guy gets up and is calling out what they're doing in California. This guy is part of Hollywood. I think the biggest thing is when you go from dating a girl or a guy, that every comment you ever made, you were walking on eggshells. Like, look at Harry dating Meghan, being married to Meghan Markle. You know that dude is walking on eggshells around her. What a miserable place to be, right? And again, this is our depiction when we see what they're like and how she's like.
Yeah.
And then you move on and you're no longer walking on eggshells with someone. You feel free. I mean, you're just relieved. You enjoy life a little bit more. People feel a little bit freer to say, I voted for Trump. I support these policies. I'm glad he got Elon, Vivek, Bobby Kennedy, Tulsi, all of these guys that were former liberals that now are going on this side. I feel weird saying this, but I'm glad I voted for the guy. Rogan, Musk, these guys were not for Trump.
Yeah.
So I think the walking on eggshells season is a little bit behind us for now, but only if we stay paranoid we can keep it this way. Typically, our guard eventually comes down and then they come back at it again.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny, looking at the California map where I was born and raised. I was born in Santa Cruz, which is, I don't have the vocabulary to describe how liberal it is. I'll just say it's so far on the left that it ends up, it's incredible. But that map of California, from the voting populace, that red is creeping closer and closer and closer and closer to the shoreline. I think it's the reddest that I've seen California in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. I think people got tired of arguing about it and they just voted. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen, especially after the California wildfires, which I know you were just recently on Fox News. And I'm curious about this. You made a comment that you think that the damage inflicted was a political failure. What do you think the cascading consequences from that will be? And what more do you think could have been done on that front?
Okay, how long did you serve, Andy? How long were you in?
16 years and 11 months. So I figure the Gov can spot me a month, so I just tell people 17 years.
Okay. So without giving names, did you ever work under a commander that was the worst? And did you ever have a commander or somebody you worked under that was the best?
The best examples of leadership I ever encountered were in the SEAL community, and the absolute worst examples of leadership I encountered were also inside of the SEAL community.
So that's perfect, though. The reason why that, and so if you were to qualify what is the definition of the best and what was the definition of the worst, what did the best make you feel like and what did the worst make you feel like?
I mean, the best leaders I ever worked for were the ones that you would literally, I don't mean figuratively, I'm literally you would lay down in traffic to try to achieve their stated goals or their mission statement to support what it is that they had briefed that we needed to accomplish as a team. The worst ones were the ones that you were looking for traffic to shove them into. And they would be, and this is where it trips people up in the SEAL community, because you still have to succeed. But what people don't see is that with those poor leaders, you're succeeding in spite of who they are, not because of who they are. It's because the team is supporting that person, but they don't like that person. They'll undermine that person. They'll listen to what they tell them to do. And they're like, yep, I'm not going to actually do that. They'll do the absolute minimum possible to achieve success. And then what the problem is inside of the SEAL community, because we all wear the same uniform, the person wears the same uniform and they're successful. And on the outside, people don't understand. And they think everybody is a great leader. And that's why I always clarify, I serve with the best and the worst.
So to quantify the best, okay, the worst, the way to put a number to it, when you were with the worst, how many of your peers were saying, I cannot wait to leave this place? And when you were with the best, how many other people said, dude, I wish I can come join? Can you guys find a way to get orders so I can come and join you guys and be over there? Can you quantify that? How many people wanted to leave the worst? How many people wanted to join the best?
I mean, I'm not a fan of absolutes, always and never, or 0 and 100%. But I think on both ends of that pendulum, it is as close to 100% as you can get.
So watch where I'm going with this. Okay. So let's measure success with numbers, not ideas and feelings and opinions. From July 2020 to April of 2024, the state that gained the most people moving to it, the number one state in America, almost 1 million people moved to Florida. During that period, the complete opposite, the worst state that lost 1.234 million people that left the state, first time ever that they had a negative net migration, was the state of California. 1.234 million people left during that same 4-year period. Okay. When you have a great leader with great policies, if you and I were to compare Newsom and DeSantis, who's a better communicator? Newsom. Who is more physically attractive, tall, on camera, looks better? Newsom. Who likes the limelight more? Newsom. Who is probably more comfortable around people? Newsom. Do we give a shit about any of that stuff? No. We care about results. We literally don't care about that. We care about results. What did DeSantis do when there was a hurricane and a bridge went down? 2-3 days it's built up. What happened when all the issues, what's going on in the state of Florida? Like this. What happened when he, at some points they had certain policies during COVID that they didn't like, and boom, within a week or two they adjusted. But it was like this, right? It was so quick the way they were doing it, and that's a sign of a great leader. So California right now is in a very weird place because you got stories like Francis Bichetti, who lives in the Palisades. He's been living there on and off for about 50 years. And he's got a place that he's owned for a couple decades, okay? So this guy, he gets a letter in from his insurance company, homeowner's insurance company in the state of California, saying your premium is going from $4,500 a month to $4,500 a year to $18,000 a year. Let me say this one more time. Premium is going $4,500 a year, which is roughly $400 a month, to $18,000 a year, which is $1,500 a month. He's sitting there, he's telling this story. I can't afford to pay for this. So what he decides to do is go through the FAIR Plan, FAIR Act that they have in the state of California, protects homeowners up to $3 million, and it's for folks that can't afford to do it. So the idea is you go on this with the hopes of eventually somebody getting it. It's $3,200 a year. He goes to get the FAIR Plan policy. They tell him to cut down 10 trees, and he can't afford to do it because it's a big cost. So finally, he makes a decision to go bare. It's called going bare, means you don't have any insurance at all. This decision was made a year ago. This last week, he lost his house.
Damn.
So if this guy has a house, say it's a $3 million house, $4 million house, how many people who have a $3-4 million house actually have $3-4 million in a bank? Not a lot of people. When somebody gets $1 million loan and they get approved to get $1 million loan, and let's just say they put 20% down, $200,000 on, they finance the $800,000. How many of those people that bought $1 million house actually have $1 million in the bank if shit were to hit the fan? Not a lot. Less than
almost
15%.
Nobody. Yeah,
almost nobody. So this is no longer about, hey, let me go to the beach. Hey, we're shutting down restaurants. Hey, I can't go to Disney. Hey, I can't go outside and play at the park because of what they did at COVID. Hey, kids are not going to school. This is no longer about that. This is now actual financial. It's very logical. It's actually you're sitting there saying, do I want to raise my kids here? Hell no. Do I want to start a business here with all the regulation? No. Do I feel like, if I live here in California with the homes, that they're going to do a better job at protecting future earthquakes and fires that's going to happen? I don't think so. How long will it take for California to recover from the Southern California? Probably 5 to 10 years. Do we have that 5 to 10 years to wait for it? No. Where do we go, babe? Nevada, Texas, Tennessee, Florida? They go to different places.
Let's not forget Montana. I mean, we're pretty awesome up here.
Well, I'm trying to keep a secret for you so you guys can just enjoy it for yourself with them not coming to you.
I don't know if you've seen this show called Yellowstone. I hate to tell you, the gig is up.
It's no longer a secret, right?
Oh, there's some pissed off locals.
I can only, because the people I knew didn't want that place to be known to others.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, Andy. With your experience in the military, there was something when you work for your colonel or your guy that was your leader. You're like, dude, I love freaking, he's tough. He kicks my ass, but I love working for this. And then there were guys you couldn't get a hold of. They were full of shit. They were always spinning different things. Oh, I was working out this morning. I had a leader one day. And this guy was the reason why I left the previous insurance company. He was one of the top 3 reasons. I'll never forget what he said one time. One day in the morning, he's like, yeah, this morning I was doing cardio, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I look to my left and I see Tiger Woods is there doing cardio. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, wow, he also gets up like me at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then all of a sudden, 45 minutes later, I'm like, hey, good workout. He says, yeah, I've been here for an hour because he was sweating. He says, and I went, I'm like, wow, as hard as I train at 4 o'clock in the morning, this guy came 45 minutes before me. Then one of the guys who was one of my competitors in the insurance company, he's like, here's the news. Tiger's not in the country. Do you understand what just happened? So that story he just made up from that morning, he was full of shit.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, wait a minute. So none of us trusted this guy. We just tolerated him. Very talented, spoke very well, very eloquent in the way he communicated, but nobody trusted him to know that he was not going to spin some kind of a story for you. This is the master spinner. Newsom is the master spinner that we have today. And I'm also concerned about people talking about him resigning. I think a recall is a better solution than resigning, because if he resigns, the lieutenant generals just like him. A recall could at least make some changes, or else we have to wait a couple of years.
It's interesting you use the term trust. When I'm out publicly speaking, I talk about leadership characteristics, and I talk about trust often because the analogy I use is a bank account. You can either make deposits or withdrawals when you're interfacing with people, and we're all going to make withdrawals from time to time because we're human and we make mistakes, but you can make that a micro withdrawal by owning your mistakes, being honest about it, communicating about your mistakes. But if you keep making macro withdrawals and you hit zero, once I go to bankrupt with somebody, I've never been able to put my trust back in them. And so I'm curious, though, it often seems to me in California that there's this limitless bank account with Newsom actually in particular, that I don't know what it's going to take for people to hit bankrupt, because you mentioned the people leaving the state. In addition to that, industry seems to be fleeing the state as well. I mean, you look at Musk, not only the people leaving, but the captains and titans of industry are taking their business elsewhere. What do you think it looks like rebuilding? I can't imagine insurance companies are going to want to insure property in those areas anymore. I mean, clearly now the evidence is out that there's an insane fire risk. So for the people who aren't incredibly liquid, you're not going to be able to get a home loan on something that's not going to be able to be insured in the first place. They're in this very tenuous place. I'm curious how you think they'll get out of it.
Look, there's some people. By the way, the guy Kiwi that you were speaking to, was that on Manek? Because Australia is the number 2 country on Manek. So I know a lot of Australians are always Manekting each other, and I always send them your way.
Yeah,
But
you do send me a bunch of. It wasn't. It was a
Okay.
flight training thing, but man, his view of the world being so well traveled. I tell you what, I think about 20% of Americans have passports. That doesn't mean they all use them.
Mm.
I think our context would be a lot greater if you were forced out of your bubble for a little bit.
No question. So I'm talking to a guy on Manek, asking me a question about California. What do I do? And he says, hey, Pat, you have no idea how bad I want to go leave California. But my in-laws live here. They help me with babysitting kids. They're Middle Eastern. They can't leave. My parents are here. They don't want to leave because they're connected with all their parents and grandparents. They don't want to leave. And my business is local. I don't know how to leave. I hate living here. I don't trust sending my kids to the schools that I'm sending, whether it's private or public. It's woke no matter what school you send them to. What do I do? To those people, I don't know what to tell them. I don't have an answer. It's a tough decision. When I moved and I left California to go to Texas, my dad didn't move. My sister didn't move. My mother didn't move. People didn't want to move, but we moved. And we went to Texas, and we lived in Dallas, Plano, Texas, for 5 years. And then the move from Texas to Florida was easy because to me, if California and Texas had a baby, it's Florida. So we moved to Florida. I like the water, and I like the low regulation stuff that protects the business owner, so we came here. To those people, I don't know if they're leaving. To the celebrities, I don't know if, less than 1% of them maybe leave. But the people you don't want leaving are the people that are in their next money-making years of the next 2 decades, the 35-year-olds. Those people are leaving. Those people are going to be sitting there, not all of them, but they're going to be sitting there saying, you know what, I just can't put my trust in the policies that they're going to come up with. I can't. So you have one of two solutions. Either the business owners in California who are sick of the fact that they raised the minimum wage for fast food workers for $20 an hour. What? $20? A 16-year-old kid that works at a fast food's making 20. Yes. What do you think that cost goes to? Big Mac is more expensive. Whoppers are more expensive. Everything becomes more expensive. So these are bad policies. Then every time you want to put a gas tax, an additional gas tax, an additional gas tax. So eventually you don't like Elon. Elon leaves. Rogan goes to Austin as well. Businesses are leaving to Texas. A lot of businesses that were there, a lot of other people are leaving.
Yeah.
But this 35-year-old sweet spot, you lose these people. They're not coming back. They're going to be gone. And so either the people of California that want to maintain the economic prowess or the pride that they have as we're the 5th largest economy in the world, you have to, at a very fast pace, make a statement to get rid of Newsom, or else those people are leaving in the next 3, 6, 12 months. Not in 2 or 3 years. They're leaving in the next 3, 6, 12 months. So those people that want people to stay, they have to move very swiftly.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard me talk about Firecracker Farm and their hot salt. You probably heard other people talk about it as well. If you haven't tried it yet, let me just tell you, you're missing out on some serious flavor. Their hot salt is delicious, and it really makes pretty much anything that you put it on even more delicious. It's hot, but when you use it in moderation, it's not too hot, and the flavor that it adds enhances without overpowering. It is handmade, super premium, and comes in awesome stainless steel push-button grinders like the one I have in my hand right here. You can take them anywhere. Hot sauce, if you've had this experience, can very easily overpower other flavors and always runs out quickly when it's good. Hot salt lasts and lasts. The push grinder holds over 500 plus pumps, and when you consider the refill it comes with, it's thousands of servings, and it's a great deal and a lot cheaper than the sauce. For those of you that like flavor but hesitate because it might be too hot, you can mix it with sea salt to tone it down and still enjoy the awesome flavor. In my personal experience, you can modulate how much comes out of the dispenser. You're in total control of the amount of heat you serve yourself. So if you would like to support our show and give Alex and his family business a shot, head over to firecracker.farm and use the code IRONCLAD to get a 15% discount on your first order. You will be very glad that you did. Firecracker.farm. All right, I'm going to change gears on you a little bit because this just came out 2 days ago, and I'm curious on your thoughts on as to potentially why this happened. Israel and Hamas decided they wanted to reach a peace agreement. And, the Biden administration is saying that the Trump administration and Biden administration, they're speaking it as one voice at this point. I have my own thoughts on that a little bit. What are your thoughts on why this change? Let's just say perhaps the timing is a little coincidental to what may be happening next week. I'm just curious your thoughts on it.
Well, if it's the ground type of a breakdown on what's going on there and how the real troops feel about it, you're going to have a much better analysis than I have. I'll give you more the strategy standpoint of how I view this thing here. Biden right now is at an age where he's thinking legacy. And he's thinking his library that they're going to build and what things they're going to have, stuff that he did under his reign. He's thinking about the $30 million book deal that he's going to get, or $20 million book deal, or maybe a $5 million book deal, but he's going to get a book deal. He's thinking about what things he's going to write about in his book with all the different things that he overcame. And Hamas one is probably a legacy victory that he wants to write about and put in his show, Netflix, doc, whatever museum that they're going to be building for him. But the best case study to compare this to was Jimmy Carter. When Jimmy Carter was president and Iran had those hostages for 444 days, I believe the days are.
Yeah.
And then the moment Reagan is coming up and they release him, Carter was, knowing they're doing this because they're afraid of the threat of Reagan. There's two different people can give a threat. Like I'm watching Khabib. I have Khabib I interviewed Khabib a few years ago, and Khabib, I said, how often do people pick on you? He says, one time I came to the States in 2012, and a guy is bullying everybody at the place he's at, and he comes up to me, and I say, brother, you don't want to do anything to me. I will smash your face. And the guy is like, what did you say? I am telling you right now, warning, I will smash your face. I said, what did the guy do? He says he believed me and walked away. Why? Two different guys. I'm going to kick your ass. I don't know if I believe this guy. Another guy says, look, honestly, I don't want to do this, but if we go there, this will be a very embarrassing moment in front of your kids and your wife. You don't want to do this. Just walk away. It's going to be okay. Why is this guy so calm? Right?
Yeah.
When Trump says, if you don't release him, it's going to be very bad for you. What do you mean by that, Mr. President-elect? It's exactly what I'm telling you. If you don't release him. So, do you think Hamas believes Biden's threat or Trump's threat? What do you think? They believe Trump's threat. So who gets the credit on this? Of course, both of them are going to try to take the credit on it. But the president of Qatar came out yesterday, president or prime minister of Qatar came out yesterday, and he says, this has happened, and I'd like to thank the president-elect for helping this happen. What does he know that others don't? They know who they're giving credit to. So, no, I think this is, if they don't do it now and they do it under Trump, it's a bad move. And Hamas is kind of playing right now like, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to do it once Trump comes in or else they're going to have another Qasem Soleimani the way Trump went after the number 2 guy in Iran, and it was not a good thing for Iran.
Do you think it'll hold, the peace deal between Palestine and Israel?
Hold?
Yeah. Do you think it'll hold up?
For 4 years it will.
So let's put our hypothesis hat on here for a second.
Sure.
What do you think would happen if Kamala had won? What do you think would be happening in that portion of the world?
If Kamala would have won, Taiwan is in trouble. If Kamala's winning, Ukraine's going to keep getting money. If Kamala won, Justin Trudeau would still be the prime minister of Canada. If Kamala would have won, Hamas would still be doing what they're doing with Israel. That conflict would have been going. If Kamala would have won, Iran would still be doing what they're doing with their proxies and all the other stuff that they have. It's a very different climate. Again, the threat, it's very important, the threat. When the person whose voice carries weight, you don't cross that person. And Biden's words don't carry any weight. Kamala, when she speaks, we don't even know what she's saying when she speaks. Listen, I took English as a second language. Maybe it's my English that's bad. But when she speaks, I want to say, what's your point? I don't understand what you're saying. When Trump speaks, it's like this. Boom. So he's like, boom, here's what's going to happen. Boom. And you either sit there and say, yeah, I don't believe him. Really? You don't believe me? No problem. Cool. Let's see what happens here. You don't believe me. Now, did you forget when I put that sanction on Huawei, and Huawei sent his daughter, who was a CFO, to Canada while they were doing deals with Iran? You forget? We used to sell Huawei phones, and what happened? No more Huawei. You forgot Huawei was like the number 1 phone in China. What happened to Huawei? What happened to Iran when they had sanctions and they couldn't do business with the 21 countries in the Middle East and the banking stuff? They were doing nothing for them. What happened to Qasem Soleimani? What happened to China with the sanctions? What happened to all these different? What happened? Did you forget? They did not forget. They know what's going on. This is why the moment Trump became the president-elect, everybody went to Mar-a-Lago having meetings with them just to say, hey, it's how you doing? Congratulations. What a brave victory. Like, oh, shit, we got to be on this guy's good side because when he says a threat, he means it. It's a very different climate.
You mentioned Ukraine. What do you think? Again, our hypothesis hats are on here a little bit. What do you think it looks like Ukraine and Russia in the conflict moving forward? How do you think that will change under Trump's administration?
Ukraine and Russia conflict moving forward. So, look, the reality of it is Zelensky can no longer come begging for money, and we just say yes. And if Congress keeps giving him money, Trump with his army of people that he's got, a lot of these guys will be out from their jobs. And these Congress, when it comes on to renewing their contracts, they're not going to be reelected. So there is different threats that Trump has now that he didn't have in 2016 or 2020.
Yeah.
They fear what happens with Musk. They fear what happens with Bobby. They're going to have different kind of, if all these guys end up getting their jobs, there's a lot of different fears. So Zelensky can't play his game. In regards to what Putin's going to do, there's a part of Putin that's probably happy Trump's in, but there's also a part of Putin that's probably not happy that Trump's in. I think it's a bipolar, contradiction of happiness and not being happy. My opinion, again, I'm just giving my analysis on this. But I think the people that are happy are the innocent people that live in Ukraine, just regular day-to-day family people. And the regular day-to-day family people that live in Russia, those people are probably happy. And probably the surrounding countries are a little bit happy on what's going to happen. Because I truly believe Trump's a anti-war guy. And he's been for many years. When he put that one center, whatever it was in New York Times, I don't know where he put it in the paper that he said, what is this, going after President Bush? What are we doing here? Like weapons of mass destruction? He's had this position for many, many years. So this is not an act. So I foresee a lot of people calming down. I foresee Taiwan being safe for 4 years. I foresee a few things taking place. And this doesn't mean they're not going to test him. This doesn't mean they're not going to be sitting there saying, well, he's nobody. I can still do whatever I want to look strong in front of their own people. But I think behind closed doors, when they pick up the phone and it says Trump's administration, they're going to be like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. Pick up the call. Yes, Mr. President. That's where they're going to be shaking.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get into elite shape, or perhaps just make improvements to your current level of fitness, check out the MTNTOUGH digital training program. You can try it for free for 14 days, and you can see the results for yourself. The app allows users to train wherever they are with minimal equipment requirements, whether you're in the gym or you're outdoors or you're at home. Users can access top-tier programming that fits into their lifestyle. The MTNTOUGH app offers expertly designed progressive training plans that guide users from start to finish. These plans are tailored to build resilience, strength, and endurance over time, preventing burnout and injury. The app features self-guided and follow-along coaching videos, allowing users to be coached through every workout step by step. This helps to ensure proper form, motivation, and intensity, regardless of the user's fitness level. The MTNTOUGH app delivers training programs built for the unique physical demands of mountain athletes, including hunters, tactical professionals, and outdoor adventurers. The programs themselves are designed by seasoned strength and conditioning experts, elite athletes, and military veterans. Start your 14-day free trial today and check out the results for yourself. And be sure to use the offer code CHANGEAGENTS, and I'm looking at it as one word, at signup, and you can get 40% off your annual subscription. Remember, use the offer code CHANGEAGENTS at checkout. You mentioned Taiwan. How do you think the next 4 years the relationship with China is going to be? What do you think about the potential threat that people think it poses to the United States?
Well, okay, so it's multidimensional, in my opinion. I think if the president can get Panama Canal, it's very important. If the president can get Greenland, very important for resources. Those are two different reasons. Panama Canal, because China has to go through them.
Yeah.
And if he gets Panama Canal and then they have to go like this, that's 50% more gas, 50% more mile. 30% takes longer to get to LA, New York, because they're going to come this way to go to New York, right? They're coming from this. Panama Canal is very, very critical in the relationship with China. Why do I say this? Because China has leverage. China has leverage in the area of what they produce for us. Cheap labor. We still have that element. And India, when Apple tried to go to India and try to make their phones in India, it wasn't as predictive because China had figured out the science of producing iPhones for Apple. And when he moved 25% of it to India, wasn't a successful case study, in other words. So now, if you look at the amount of money that we get from tariffs every year, tax revenue that we get from tariffs, do you know what the dollar amount is? Actually, all countries combined, how much we collect in tariffs every year in dollars. What do you think that number is?
I mean, this is going to fall into the wild ass gas category. I don't know. I would want to say hundreds of billions.
$80 billion. That's all we get.
Wow.
By the way, I thought it was $500 billion to $1 trillion. It's only
I
80
wanted
billion.
in my head, I wanted to say $1 trillion, but I just
Me
assumed it
too.
was too high.
No, when I'm looking at, I said, there's no way. We get at least $1 trillion of tariffs revenue. It's $80 billion. And somebody should, fact check me on this. $80 billion. Do you know what is the average percentage of tariffs we charge countries? 2%. 2%. So to me, the part I'm most excited about is to see what Vivek and Ilana are going to be doing when it comes down to DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiencies, is what if we do the following? What if we say across the board, guys, listen, 25% tariffs on every country. Are you serious? Yes. You know what that would do to our revenue? It's $1 trillion in revenue. Now we can lower taxes. Now we can pay off some of our debt. You know what we can do with Japan that we owe the $1.1 trillion of bonds they bought from us? What if we go to Japan and say, hey, Japan, how many thousands of troops do we have in Japan? I think the number is 52,000. I can verify this. I want to say the number is 52,000 total troops that we have in Japan. How long have we been given protection to you? For many years. How long is it? This many years? And we have military base. We pay for it, all this stuff. Yes. You know what? For all the protection we've given you in the last 70 years or whatever the time line it is, we would like to continue giving that kind of protection with one caveat. What's that? We are cutting the $1.1 trillion that we owe you.
Debt
We're no
relief.
longer going to be paying you. The debt relief. Well, that's not fair. I totally get it. I knew you were going to react that way. We can pull our troops. No. Well, then, listen. What do you want to do? Okay, let's write a 10-year agreement that will stay, 20-year agreement that will stay. We'll take the cost. But for now, this agreement, you're wiping $1.1 trillion of debt. You have the leverage to negotiate it. To me, there's ideas on what to do with this, right? But I want to increase our revenue from others coming in, not from just us internally. I love the fact that President Trump said, we're going to have an external revenue service, not just internal revenue service. Why are we so worried about collecting money from Americans? Why don't we go collect money from other countries that are not paying us promptly? Let's go get that money. He's right. So these are things that I'm excited about. You know, your first question about how I feel about the future of America. If we change some of our views on this and we actually execute on these ideas, you know, future looks really, really bright for America.
Do you think Trump is serious about Greenland? Because half the time I can't tell if he's fucking around. He could be the God-level troll of just saying things and letting people's brains explode with the reactions.
Well, I mean, if you look at his track record, I would put 30% troll, 70% serious. When he first came out and he ran in 2015, my initial reaction was this is a marketing stunt. A lot of people thought it was a marketing stunt until he won, and you're like, oh, shit. He's the president of the United States, and Hillary Clinton's in tears making a phone call, and all the people that were crying, that clip that we've all seen before. I don't know. It's not like this the first time he said it. I think the first time he said it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can look this up. So for him to say it again and again and again, I don't know. I think he wants to have one of those Louisiana moments, one of those Alaska moments, what Truman couldn't do with $100 million when he tried to buy Greenland, and they said no. I think he wants to have one of those moments. And by the way, that's a massive, massive legacy statement if he does that. Massive legacy statement if he does that.
Hey, Mike Baker here, host of the President's Daily Brief podcast, former CIA operations guy, and a big fan of Ironclad podcasts and productions. The folks at Ironclad have graciously given me a moment to tell you about an epic trek taking place in January, this month, and well into February, in order to raise awareness and funds for the UK Special Forces Benevolent Fund. Now, the Benevolent Fund is focused on the needs and well-being of the United Kingdom's military and veterans. It's a great cause with a lot of work to do. To raise awareness for the fund, 5 of us from the UK's Special Forces Club, along with 10 camels and an amazing support team, set off in early January to retrace the 700-mile grueling route taken by Lawrence of Arabia and a small Arab army back in 1917 to go from Al-Waj in the Saudi Kingdom to Aqaba in Jordan. Assuming nothing goes sideways, we expect to ride into Aqaba on 7 February. If you'd like to learn more, please check out the fund's website at www.sfcbf.org, Also, you can get updates on the Trek by following the Trek's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn sites. Just search SFCBF Trek. And thank you again to Ironclad for their support.
I'm fired up about the idea of Doge as well. And honestly, at this point, I feel like if they can accomplish 10% of what they've been talking about, that is a fantastic step in the right direction for our country. And I don't necessarily know the mechanism of which they would either carve away, fire hire, whatever it may be. But how much do you think? I mean, there's been some very large numbers thrown around by both Elon and Vivek. What do you think the reality is? And again, I think people think it's going to be as soon as Trump comes into office, the government is instantly going to be reshaped. Of course,
No.
that's not the case.
No.
I can understand the desire for it to be like that. Personally, I think the government is way out front of its skis in both size and breadth and depth and the glacial pace that it works. What do you think they could actually get accomplished I was going to say the next 4 years, but I'm pretty sure Trump put the 4th of July, 2026 as the end date for the anniversary.
I think if the Trump-Musk relationship stays intact, that's probably the biggest factor. And why do I say that? Because the leverage Elon has with owning Twitter and being worth $500 billion, where he can ruin someone's career as a congressman or congresswoman, that's real power. You know, when he says, I'm going to put $250 million behind a campaign, that really means something. You know, remember when there was that Senate race in Georgia and they put everybody's going to be the biggest Senate race, all this money is being put, oh my God. And then, you know, Democrats won. Everybody was thinking it was going to be the other way around. You have the guy with the most money in the world there. You have the guy that runs the #1 citizen journalism app in the world called Twitter, X. And he may be getting TikTok with the way the deal's being broken down. And I think behind closed doors, Elon may be presenting to Trump in a way of saying, hey, if Zuckerberg has Facebook, WhatsApp, and TikTok, why can't I with X also, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram? Why can't I have TikTok under X, and I will drive it? So I think President Trump's probably entertaining that idea of what that would look like. But for me, you know, even Vivek said it. It's not like we're just going to come out and do this. We need the Congress's help to be more efficient. They can't just fire people. But Elon buys X. They have 7,500 employees. The next day he fires 50%. They're down to 3,750. A week later, the 3,750 that got fired recruit another 1,250 to quit. So he went from 7,500 to 2,500 within a matter of weeks. That's the real way of being efficient. And the company still ran. So, no, I think both of them are entrepreneurs. And as an entrepreneur, you have to know what it is to cut costs and save money for a company, because that's how it works, or else you go bankrupt. Both of them have that experience. It's the most qualified guys, two of the most qualified guys that can pull this off. But the chess piece is going to be getting Congress to have a level of leverage or fear to want to play ball, or else. It's going to come down to that threat.
Yeah. People may not know this about you, but you were in the Army. They probably know that I was in the Navy. I'm curious your thoughts. Military recruiting, not exactly hitting their numbers for about the last decade. Some people, I haven't used the term crisis associated with it, but some people think we're in a military recruiting crisis. What do you think, if you were king for a day, when it came to the infrastructure that oversees efforts to gain more recruits for the military? What would you do?
Very simple for me. So obviously, I've been fortunate enough to be a Yankees minority owner, and I've had 2 opportunities to buy in, and I've bought both times. And I got in trouble a couple months ago when Juan Soto hadn't signed yet, and I posted a poll to saying, you know, is Juan Soto worth $700 million? Yes, no, what's the alternative? Okay. And that poll went off, and a bunch of people trashed me, cannot believe you're saying this, all this other stuff. And I got calls from management all the way at the top saying, you know, you can't put this up there. MLB is requesting you take it down, because the trade was still going on. Not the trade, but the contract was still in negotiation. So anyways, at this point, the poll is all over the place. I'm saying this respectfully. When Juan Soto, a day after the Yankees lose to the Dodgers, which they should have won that game, says, what are the chances of you staying with the Yankees? And he says, I'm going to take all the offers. This is the Yankees that you played 1 year for, and you guys almost won the World Series. And you go to the Mets for $10 million more, give or take, 750, 760, whatever the number was. For a little bit more money, you just went to the Mets. It bothers me from one standpoint, and I'm a minority owner. I have no voice. I'm not a majority. I don't make the call. It's not my organization. I'm just one of the voices. I don't want somebody to be a Yankee that would have gone anywhere else and there was zero pride in being a Yankee. I don't want you here. The mindset. I mean, you can call me old school, whatever. I had Scottie Pippen here a few days ago. We're doing a podcast that's going live tomorrow. And I said, Zion Williamson. Will this guy ever be a superstar? I don't think so. Who's the only person that can fix Zion Williamson? He says, only one guy. Who's the one guy? Pat Riley. I said, Pat Riley, he just got a lot of criticism for being tough with Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy Butler wants to leave. And he says, well, that's true. That's Pat Riley's reputation. People who go there want to leave. Dwayne wanted to leave. LeBron wanted to leave. And da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that. And as Pat Riley's like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's time for me to step away, right? Alonzo Mourning played for Miami. He went and became one of their GMs. And a lot of people said, Spoelstra's been a coach there for 20 years. How come he hasn't left, right? And to me, the moment you lose the pride of being a Yankee, the moment you lose the pride of wearing the 101st Airborne badge, the moment you forget what it is to be a Navy SEAL, the pride of SEAL, I'm a SEAL. Dude, that's pride. The moment you no longer value what it is to be fighting for your country, America, if the pride isn't there and it's not sold in that manner, what the F am I doing joining the military? Former coach of the New York Giants wrote a book on leadership, and I always forget his name, but he won 2 championships. And I'm sure you know who he is. If you know it, please say it because I want to give him proper recognition. So in his book in leadership, he says, I've tried to drive my players many, many times in ways of kicking their ass. I've tried to do FOMO. You don't play, you're not going to start. I've tried to do all this other. He says, nothing's ever worked better than selling my guys on the pride of your family's last name on your back, the pride of being a Giant, the pride of being an American, the pride of working together as a win and beating the person that nobody ever thought we can beat them, like the flipping New England Patriots undefeated season. The pride. He says, I got chills all over my body, right? The pride of running through a wall. We're going to do this together, guys. Like, I remember when I was on my Army unit, that level of camaraderie we had. Dude, there's something about it, right? So until we go back, that it's an honor to be a Marine. It's an honor to be an Army, soldier. It's an honor to be in a Navy. It's an honor to be in the Air Force. Instead of, can you please join? We'll give you another 80 grand. It's unattractive to me. To me, I want us to go back to the era of selling and building up our heroes. We have to sell America. We have to sell the history of Navy. We have to sell the history of America. We have to sell the history of Army. We have to sell the history of the SEALs. We have to sell the history of 18 Delta, Special Forces, Ranger. We have to sell the SEER School, Airborne. We have to sell it. Until we do that, it's desperation, and quite frankly, it's so unattractive. It's like a guy begging for a girl to go out, and she's just like, dude, I'm not attracted to it. It's got to be a different approach, and I hope they figure out a way to do it. I mean, I saw Pete Hegseth doing what he's doing, and the questions he was asked, and talking about my boys in the back when he was breaking down the stories and what we did out there, and we all know each other, the stories, all this other stuff. Something attractive about that. I think we got to get back to that part, and God willing, we will, because we got a lot of work to do in this area.
I agree. One more question for you, because I know I'm running short on your time, and this is probably a good segue out of the conversation. But for people not familiar with your background, they should definitely look at where you came from, your entrepreneurial journey, which took some left and rights, as they all seem to. Who's somebody who's at your place right now, and you were talking about this when we were talking about California, that sweet spot of the 35-year-old, somebody in their 3rd decade, maybe even in their 4th, depending on where they hit their groove, looking at the next 4 years. Advice to somebody, business-wise, work-wise, ethic-wise, whatever it is, looking at these next 4 years. What do you want to leave the people with what would your piece of advice be for that generation? I mean, not even that generation, just people in general who are looking to get ahead.
It's a great question. So I'm 46 years old. Do you know how quickly I became 46 years old? Like this. Guy comes in the other day. He's the director of Inter Miami. He comes in and we're having a conversation together. He starts telling me what he used to do, all the nightclubs he used to run in LA, Garden of Eden and, Century Club and, Miyagi's and Saddle Ranch and all these places he opened up. I'm like, we just went back to stories. And I became 21 years old again. And we knew the same people. Andy, that was 25 years ago. I can't believe I'm 46. It's still young, but I'm telling you, I can't believe I'm 46, okay? So the more you age, what do you value? You value your time with your family. You value your community. You value where you live, where certain patterns that you feel comfortable about, that is a protection, safety, security, predictable, respect. The things you value at 46 is different than the things you value at 21 years old, 22 years old, 23 years old. One time a famous Iranian singer, Daryush, who used to be a big drug addict, eventually comes out and admits to it, and he ends up getting tens of millions of followers. His music, I love his music. But he sang a lot of sad songs. He's an Iranian guy. One day my brother-in-law, Siamak, takes me to a concert of his, and he gets up and he says the most powerful statement, Andy. He says, make sure the young wolf in you takes care of the old wolf you'll one day be. He says, I can't believe I'm 70 years old. When he's telling the story, he's probably in his mid-60s to late 60s. This thing's going to go by quick. So for the people that you're talking to that are 35-ish at that age, find the state that you see yourself living in for the rest of your life. What is that state? Find your community. Find a company that matches your values and principles and move there and run with them. Nothing like it. Identify the industry. Identify what industry or company will be able to use your skill sets in the best of possibilities. Go there. In the next 4 years, capitalize off the next 4 years. Do not waste your time. Like this, it's 2028. Like that, it's 2028. Whatever you do, by 2028, I write my business plan every single year, and I go through it. And I break down everything. Ways I want to improve with my wife. Ways I want to improve with my son. Oldest son, youngest son, oldest daughter, youngest daughter, my relation with my mom, my dad, new allies, new relationship, new friends, new mentors, vision for every single business, by David Consulting, dreams, and then values and principles. And when I write this out and I go through certain things where, hey, you've been battle tested, but just like video games, there are levels to this game. The next one will be a big one. If you can make it through the next level, you will exponentially grow. Few things you will have to embrace. Which fights to fight, which fights to ignore, prevent being provoked. If you're going to fight, fight up, not down. When I'm writing this down and I'm excited about the next 4 years, I can't tell you how enthusiastic I am about what's about to happen. But if most people just wing the next 4 years, life's not going to change. It's just going to be the same thing. Yeah. Do a timeout if you haven't done it yet. Sit down and actually be intentional about the next 4 years. If you do, this could be the beginning of the greatest years of your life.
Hope everybody enjoyed today's episode. Hope you left with a little bit of food for thought based on PBD's view of the upcoming world. If you want to see more of Patrick's work, you can find his YouTube channel or the PBD Podcast. The podcast, of course, is going to be on all the mediums. The YouTube channel can be found on YouTube. Thank you again for listening to Change Agents, an Ironclad original presented by Firecracker Farm. See you all next week with a brand new guest, a brand new episode. See you then.
Ironclad creates premium content no matter the environment. From extreme elements to unforgiving terrain, we thrive on crafting content that captures the essence of your brand in the most challenging conditions. Bring your brand story to life, ensuring your message leaves an impact. Ready to elevate your vision? Connect with us today at ironcladagency.com.